Hello everyone, welcome to the Lightning Ball channel. If you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, please do so and activate the notification bell. Your support fuels my continued efforts. In our last episode, we discussed how Rimuru fell into Rudra's trap and engaged in a debate with him regarding the governance of their respective worlds. Unfortunately, this played right into the hands of Rudra, Velgrynd, and TenSura Kondu, who used the time to manipulate their parallel existence and forcibly subjugate the storm dragon located at the Monster Federation's headquarters. Why was the world's pinnacle true dragon, storm dragon Veldora, forcibly taken away? What exactly happened in the Jura forest? In this video, we will delve into the battle of the true dragons. Let's get started. For Veldora, this day was nothing short of a disaster. Deep within the Jura forest, due to the war, the entire Tempest City was hidden inside the labyrinth. This made Velgrynd, the second sister of the Storm Dragon and a stunning figure in the sky, all the more conspicuous. With her resounding voice, Velgrynd called out to Veldora to come out of the labyrinth and face her like a good child. Seeing his second sister made Veldora tremble. Just 2 days prior, he had been thoroughly beaten by his eldest sister, Frost Dragon Velgrynd, and his emotional scars had yet to heal. Now, he faced another encounter with a fearsome sibling. But the current situation left little room for contemplation. By his side, Rimuru was frantically scurrying about like a panicked child, while his other subordinates were equally unsettled by this sudden enemy invasion. With Rimuru absent, Veldora was the only one capable of handling this situation. Therefore, he immediately ordered everyone to stay inside the labyrinth to fend off the powerful enemy, knowing that its 100 levels could slow Velgrynd's progress and buy them time. However, as if she had seen right through Veldora's thoughts, Velgrynd materialized a crimson lance in her hand. While speaking of giving Veldora a gentle warning, she hurled the lance, which pierced straight through the defenses of the labyrinth, destroying its first 50 levels. This action only heightened the already panicked state of the Storm Dragon. It was then that Veldora received a thought communication from Rimuru. From Rimuru's anxious tone, Veldora understood that even Rimuru couldn't assist him at the moment, and that Rimuru had entrusted the situation at the labyrinth entirely to him. For the first time entrusted with such responsibility, Veldora steeled himself for the challenge. The naive thoughts that had occupied his mind vanished, replaced by a resolve to exert his full strength for the sake of his friend. Seeing Veldora's determined demeanor, the people around him calmed down yet couldn't help feel worried. Veldora confidently told the others to stay in the labyrinth and watch his heroic display. He then left the labyrinth alone, ascending to a height equal to Velgrynd's. Upon seeing Veldora, Velgrynd seemed somewhat pleased and asked if Veldora had decided to assist her and Rudra. However, Veldora coldly rejected Velgrynd, stating that he didn't want to be involved in a sisterly squabble and that he was no longer the naughty dragon he used to be. He had grown up and mastered his powers. Velgrynd never truly believed that mere words would sway Veldora. Only through force could he be made to obey. Still, Veldora's defiant attitude irked Velgrynd. With a hint of nonchalance, she remarked that perhaps she had not disciplined Veldora for too long. Curious to see how much Veldora had grown, Velgrynd launched an unhesitant assault. Unfortunately for her, not only did Veldora block her attack, but he also swiftly counterattacked, landing a solid punch on Velgrynd. The first time Veldora successfully withstood his sister's attack, he became overly confident and cocky. However, Velgrynd was in no mood to entertain his chatter. She infused her fists and legs with the flames of the Crimson Lotus and launched another attack. Miraculously, Veldora managed to withstand it again, showing no sign of injury and maintaining his nonchalant demeanor. However, Veldora quickly noticed something amiss. Although the burning flames had no effect on him, they had damaged his cherished outfit. It was a valuable garment gifted to him by Rimuru just a few days earlier to celebrate the anticipated victory over the Empire's forces, and now it was engulfed in flames. This infuriated Veldora. He knew it was his own carelessness that led to this, but he felt justified in directing all his anger toward his sister. His fury diluted his fear, and muttering about the unforgivable, Veldora decided to let his sister truly experience his wrath. Velgrynd calmly reminded Veldora that he had never won against her. At that moment, both Veldora and Velgrynd unleashed their full power, and the Black Dragon and the Crimson Dragon manifested in the sky. Thus began the battle of the true dragons. Rewinding time a bit to address the Scorch Dragon, the three primordial demon beauties had also joined the battlefield. Unfortunately, even the parallel existence of the Scorch Dragon proved too much for them. Velgrynd easily neutralized their proudest skill, nuclear magic, as if it was child's play. To put it in perspective, the nuclear magic gravity collapse, which primordial Yellow Carrera could use only by exerting her full strength, required merely 1% of Velgrind's magical capacity. This meant that, if Velgrynd exerted her full power, eliminating the three primordial demon beauties would be effortless. However, just when Testarossa, Ultima, and Carrera were in utter despair, Veldora came to their rescue. In response to Veldora's fury, Velgrynd dissolved her parallel existences elsewhere, transforming into her true, majestic dragon form radiating a vivid crimson aura. The intense heat from her presence ignited roaring flames in the surrounding area. It had been 2,000 years since Velgrynd last encountered Veldora, and she could sense a significant improvement in Veldora's strength since their last meeting. However, she was confident that sheer power would suffice to communicate her superiority. Even if she failed, Rudra's authority could control any being, including true dragons. This was evident from the fact that even she was bound by Rudra's will. Velgrynd suddenly felt like she was on the cusp of recalling something crucial but then shook her head, dismissing the thought. Her current priority was to subdue Veldora, thereby reducing Rudra's burden and ensuring their ultimate victory. Any other concerns could wait. So, Velgrynd charged towards Veldora, initiating the battle with her burning breath, a scorching beam of intense heat. Based on past encounters, this single strike would have been sufficient to defeat the naive Veldora, who typically chose to withstand attacks head-on and subsequently succumb to a mana overload caused by the accelerated destruction effect of burning breath. This time, however, Veldora dodged the fiery beam in a frantic manner. Witnessing her brother's growth brought a smile to Velgrind's face. From that single exchange, she realized that Veldora had acquired an ultimate skill and had become adept in using his power. The once reckless youngster was now a formidable adversary, posing a genuine threat to her. This realization made Velgrynd more cautious. Dealing with a true dragon proficient in ultimate skills could impact the success or failure of their grand scheme. Velgrynd commended Veldora on his development, further expressing a desire to recruit him to their side. Veldora blushed slightly at the praise, but Velgrynd continued, intent on demonstrating her true power to her brother. Surrounded by a brilliant aura, Velgrynd initiated an attack of staggering magnitude. Magical circles materialized around Veldora, marking the simultaneous activation of 11 nuclear cannons, each launched by one of her 10 additional parallel existences. The convergence of 11 deadly beams of light targeted Veldora, who found it nearly impossible to dodge due to their overwhelming number. Resorting to a magical barrier for defense, Veldora attempted to neutralize the attack. However, his reaction was fractionally delayed, allowing the scorching beams to pierce through his skin, causing intense pain. Despite the agony, Veldora endured and retaliated, imbuing his ultimate skill, Lord of Investigation, into his storm magic, Ruin Tempest, and blasting the stationary Velgrynd away with a fierce gust. Veldora suggested that his elder sister must have felt the impact of his counterattack, and proposed that making peace would be a wiser choice. However, the very moment Velgrynd sustained damage from Veldora's strike, she became engulfed in rage. Intent on reclaiming her dignity as the elder sister, Velgrynd once again unleashed 11 nuclear cannons, simultaneously employing a teleportation spell to gain a strategic position above Veldora. Veldora, in a frenzied state, evaded with agility, flying back and forth as he pondered an escape plan. Meanwhile, Velgrynd, having ascended to the skies, had completed her spell casting. Velgrynd acknowledged Veldora's achievement in causing her injury, but declared it was time to end the confrontation. Following this proclamation, a relentless shower of flames began to fall from the sky. The fire raindrops eventually converged into towering infernos that linked heaven and earth, forming a cage-like barrier around Veldora. Trapped, the storm dragon Veldora could only maneuver anxiously, using his ultimate skill to predict and dodge the onslaught. Although confined, he remarkably evaded direct hits. But this was just the beginning. As the fire columns rampaged, the once vibrant earth transformed into a boiling lava field, radiating immense heat, a deliberate ploy by the Scorch dragon. In the aftermath of her ground attack, Velgrynd planned to turn the molten lava into tiny airborne particles through the impact, continuously assailing the evading Veldora. This maneuver marked the completion of her cardinal cage. Velgrind's ultimate skill, Lord of Charity, allowed her to manipulate all forms of energy, intensifying it to support allies or draining it from foes. Thus, anyone trapped within the cage was entirely at Velgrind's mercy. Convinced of Veldora's inability to resist any further, Velgrynd leisurely prepared to deliver her final notice. However, she abruptly stopped as Veldora's presence vanished unexpectedly. Anxious, Velgrynd whirled around, only to find Veldora had transformed into his human form, grinning cheekily as he declared that the mightiest moves were futile if they missed their target. Veldora's triumphant laughter deeply wounded Velgrind's pride. Despite his composed appearance, Veldora's escape owed much to luck. At that critical moment, his Lord of Investigation's ability, Pursuit of Truth, presented the optimal solution: escape in human form, though with only a 50% chance of success. Fortunately, another ability, Probability Manipulation, which doubles success rates against equal or weaker opponents, activated, turning the odds to a certain escape. Velgrynd watched Veldora laughing heartily, forced to admit that her brother had grown to match her in strength. This realization, while irritating, also filled her with a sense of pride for Veldora's growth. Witnessing Velgrind's acknowledgement, Veldora was exhilarated. However, Velgrind's expression grew more serious, and Veldora steeled himself for what was to come. Resolved, Veldora commenced his action, launching his ultimate and self-invented technique, Storm Blast. Emanating from the storm dragon's maw, the roaring thunderstorm transformed into invisible, minuscule interference waves that danced around unpredictably. To most observers, this spectacle might appear as just the prelude to an attack, but therein lay its brilliance. When these numerous interference waves intersected, they triggered a reaction of unimaginable destructive power, rendering any defense futile if not halted from the onset. Velgrynd, caught off guard, only realized the trick behind Veldora's move when intense pain surged through her body. Veldora gloated over catching his sister off guard with his special technique, a strategy previously unthinkable in their skirmishes. This newfound advantage over his sister incited Veldora's desire to boast. However, Velgrynd calmly noted that it was precisely this arrogance that led to Veldora's downfall. In a flash, Veldora felt a severe pain, a clear sign of Velgrind's victory in this bout. After acknowledging Veldora's growth, Velgrynd had abandoned her plan to forcibly take him back through her might. Whether it was underestimation or a calculated risk, Velgrynd getting hit by Veldora's attack was part of a strategy to distract him from the stealthily approaching airship. On that ship, Tatsuya Kanda launched a strike potent enough to annihilate even a god, the ultimate skill Lord of Judgment's most powerful ability, Judgment Bullet. A hit from this would obliterate even a parallel existence of Velgrynd. Thus, the unsuspecting Veldora, even with his formidable nature, felt his very existence threatened. Disbelief washed over him as he realized his sister had relied on a third party's intervention, a move uncharacteristic of the proud true dragons, who typically sought victory through their own strength. However, Veldora had little time to ponder this anomaly. Struck by the attack, he, as a spiritual life form, sensed an imminent threat to his life, a searing agony coursing through his being, signaling defeat. Despite the alarms blaring throughout his body, Veldora remained composed, reassured by the soul corridor connecting him with Rimuru, which allowed for his resurrection as long as Rimuru lived. Or so he thought. Simultaneously, Veldora felt his consciousness slipping away, usurped by Emperor Rudra's simultaneous activation of his ultimate skill, Lord of Justice's ability, Regalia Dominion. Overwhelmed by both physical and mental assaults, even Veldora found himself powerless. In the face of life and death, Veldora's thoughts turned to his ally, Rimuru. The prospect of Rimuru being affected by Regalia Dominion was unacceptable to Veldora. The power of Regalia Dominion was overwhelming, and with their connection through the Soul Corridor, Rimuru too was at risk of being ensnared by its influence. This was an outcome Veldora was determined to prevent at all costs. Harnessing his willpower in the fleeting moments before his consciousness faded, Veldora forcibly severed the Soul Corridor. Entrusting his faith in Rimuru, Veldora breathed a sigh of relief, his consciousness then plunging into dormancy. Alright, that's all for this video. In our next episode, we will delve into the awakening of the 3 primordial demon beauties and the evolution of Lord of Wisdom, leading to the birth of Mana's Seal. The climax of this chapter is upon us, with thrilling content on the horizon. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. Your support is greatly appreciated. See you in the next one.